Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special Tuesday night Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Andrew Van Beber, also known as Andy, to all of you out there in our audience. Joining me as always, Travis Kirkendall, live from Chicagoland.
Yes, sir.
Our friend Sean is movie star extraordinaire, is on set. So I just like saying that with the air quotes. That makes it more official, saying on set, and then say, hey, we know a movie celebrity. No, but Sean we're going to let Sean explain whenever he comes back on what project it's kind of exciting. No speaking part, but you will see him on a major streaming service on a show next season. And he says, what was it he said the other day? It's hard for him to not laugh when he's in the shot or whatever. And I guess he hears the dialogue or what. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure it's funny, whatever it is.
Well, yeah. But so please forgive me for last night. We weren't on because we're winding down on dad duty 2022 in basketball season. And man, high school is going to kill me when she gets into high school. We've had, what is this? We've had 3 weeks of 3-night a week basketball. This week is just 2 nights this week basketball. And, but we're doing good. So I'm very proud of the job they're doing and everything. How's your weekend, Travis?
My weekend was good. Can't complain. We stayed home and kind of just did stuff around here. She was working, so I kind of limited what we could do. But it was pretty laid back. Got some much needed rest, and it was too short. It's always too short.
It always is. How much time are you going to get off for Christmas? Are you just getting Christmas day after Christmas, or how's that going to work for you?
So I know it's Christmas Eve, Christmas, possibly Friday and possibly Monday. I'm not 100% sure yet.
And hear us teachers moan and complain about, man, we don't get a full 2 weeks off, and and you guys who have to actually work for a living, us little,
that's not always.
Us overgrown babysitters, I guess you could say, but
I would say you guys definitely deserve 2 weeks break.
We are, man, I want to tell you something. So today I felt like I was just at the end of my rope today. I just wanted to go home and cry today, but it's whatever. It is what it is, and
Sorry to hear that. Jeez.
No, it's just, well, we need to do another show, and I wanted, one of our goals one of our plans for as we approach season 3.
Oh
man, we're getting close. We are about, what are we? We are 14 episodes away from season 3. And I kind of like to do one of the things that we're talking about, and those of you who are listening and are on the podcast live right now, one of the things that, and we've talked about doing this kind of show before, but kind of having like a town hall kind of meeting. I like to do one with students. I'd like to do one with teachers. I like to have a panel. And Travis and I are still trying to talk about an idea of maybe us all getting together somehow, or at least me and Travis getting together and doing a show with Sean. But that's some cool stuff we've got coming up in the next year. But no, this has been one of those. This has just been one of those days. But it gets better as Christmas break comes next Tuesday, and we'll have, for the first time in about 10 years, a full 2 weeks, which will be nice. So
that is awesome.
Anyway,
good for you.
Yeah. So tonight's episode is called. Oh, by the way, we haven't said this in a while. Tonight's episode is being sponsored by American Traditional Coffee Company and
Yes,
Van
sir.
Beber and Son DJ Services. We have so far. I'm very happy to report we have 3 bookings already, possibly a 4th one. We've had a number of people contact us, and I'm very excited about that. Mention us whenever you contact us for a DJ job, and just mention the Voice of Reason, and you get 20% off. So
There
Anyway,
you go.
saying all that. But tonight's episode is called "Playing with Human Trading Cards." Obviously, we need to we want to talk about the trade that happened this week. Kind of mixed views from a variety of different people on this trade for Britney Griner. What exactly what it was? So we made the trade for Victor. We had in our custody Victor Bout, who was in the middle of doing. Well, I won't say in the middle. He was actually on the. From what I understood, we've had him for about 14 years in American prison. Victor Bout is a Russian
12
arms.
years, I believe.
12. Is it 12 years?
I believe 12 is what I
Yeah.
read.
So he is a Russian arms dealer, who we've had in our possession quite a while. And Britney Griner, of course, those WNBA. I believe plays for the. I think it's the Phoenix Mercury. I'm pretty sure it's the
I'm not
WNBA. It's
100%
the
sure.
it's the WNBA.
Oh, come on. You can't say that.
It's just Oh no, but we traded for we made the trade, and Brittany Griner is just one of these. I don't want to say jaded characters that we have, but she's a celebrity. 31 years old, player for the Phoenix Mercury, who is quite, all joking aside, quite remarkable basketball player for the Mercury. She is 31 years old. She married, has a wife, and I believe a child.
Believe so, yes.
And she gave was last year, 2 years. How long ago has George Floyd's death been now? That's been two.
Oh God, that was 2020.
Yeah, it's 2020.
What month?
Yeah,
It was I think it was like summer of 2020,
yeah,
right?
and so after George Floyd's death in Minnesota, Brittany Griner said, I'm not going to stand for the national anthem, and of course that gets a lot of people up in arms, and so she officially hates America now, and she gets that label put to her by a lot of the right-wing media. So what ends up happening then is and this has been we don't want to make this sound like this was a deal that just literally happened overnight. This had, according to some, and Travis is going to mention the White House response to all this later on, but according to the State Department, this was a deal that had been in the works for at least a couple of months. And this is
I think she's been arrested since February.
Yeah, so she had spent her time in a Russian prison colony that was east of Moscow, and she was in a pretty rugged place. She was put in. It was basically, from some of the research that I've done, it was a leftover of some of the old Russian gulags that were left over from Stalin days. And so I don't believe she was in Siberia. I don't think she was that far over, but it was cold enough that she cut off her dreadlocks, and
I saw that. I read that. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, and so she was put into basically a sewing penal colony. But I'm sorry, but a woman who's close to 7 foot tall. I mean, I have huge man hands. I can only imagine that she probably had much bigger female man hands, and she could not, she was afraid that she, couldn't keep up and all this other stuff. And in these Russian, when you read about these Russian prison camps, they're nothing to write home about. I mean, and she, from what Brittany is, some of the early stuff that's come out from her lawyer and from her wife was that, people knew who she was in prison, and she was afraid of being targeted, whoever. But so, our survey question this week asked, what do you think about the prisoner trade for Brittany Griner? And going to be quite honest, Travis, I was kind of, this was another one of those that was a well responded to survey. 25. We had 25 people who chimed in on this, and I said,
Oh wow.
do you think Brittany Griner the trade for Brittany Griner is a good trade? And our options were yes, getting any American release is a good thing. Yes, however, there needs to be focus placed on releasing other Americans held in captivity as well, and we'll get to that issue. No, releasing a major arms dealer was not good for America, and no, releasing a person simply because of their celebrity status is not right. So the results that we had for this, let's see here. Oh my goodness. So overall, we had close to 50% said no, releasing a person simply because of their celebrity status is not right. Right behind it was 32% no, releasing a major arms dealer was not good for America. And then both of them tied at about 10% yes, the two yeses. So, you know, what from the on the outset, let's just, before we dive too deep in this, Travis, what are your thoughts about this trade? How did you feel about this trade? Was this the trade to make? Was this the right time, right place, right person?
I mean, for starters, that's one of the questions you asked in the survey. It makes a good point. I mean, had this been just any random American that got arrested for what happened, like this would have never happened. So the celebrity status played a big part in this for sure. Um, as far as the trade itself, man, I really think the U.S. took a big loss here. Now, I'm all for, obviously, you have an American stranded in another country. You know, by all means, let's try to get a home. At the same time, however, she did break the law, Russian law.
Mm-hmm.
And to remind folks what happened, she was arrested back in February on drug smuggling charges after vape cartridges were allegedly found in her carry-on luggage at the Moscow airport. Vape cartridges having like THC.
Mm-hmm.
It's illegal in Russia. So, I mean, you break the law, you get caught, you know?
Right.
So there is that. This guy that we traded, I'm kind of blown away that we allowed this to happen. And this man was called the Merchant of Death for a reason. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
from what Andy and I both researched, I mean, people went to, if they wanted whatever it was for a good price, they went to this guy. Pretty sure his funding was behind quite a few attacks. And I mean, he was arrested for, it was like a suspicion of,
Mm-hmm.
he was going to do a terrorist attack. They suspected he was going to launch a terrorist attack or going to fund a terrorist attack, something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Did you
And
get
so
did you read the story on how they got him?
it was in was it in Thailand or the Philippines or somewhere?
It was in Thailand, and
Yeah, what was
it was two federal agents who posed as Colombian, the terrorist group FARC, who they posed as two Colombian FARC members, and I forgot what I mean the amount of the stuff that they had. Oh, the actual what he was offering them 30,000. So this is what the deal was for. Okay, 30,000 AK-47 rifles, 10 million rounds of ammunition, 5 tons of C4 plastic explosive, ultralight airplanes outfitted with grenade launchers, mortars, unmanned aerial vehicles, Dragunov sniper rifles with night vision, vehicle-mounted anti-aircraft cannons that could take down an airliner, and then 700 to 800 shoulder-fired homing surface-to-air missiles, or SAMs, and also man-portable air defense systems. And
Yeah.
so
And that's just what they caught him on at
that's
moment.
what that's what they caught him going
And he's
with.
been doing this for forever now.
And so one of the comments that we talked about, and I had just made this discovery tonight, and we were talking about this before we went on the air, that the 2005 movie that Nicolas Cage was in, it was called Lord of War. And I'm not a Nicolas Cage fan, but it's actually this movie was based on Victor Kout, and I mean it's a vicious movie. I mean, and it basically, and it tells the story of how this guy and his brother became arms dealers, and that's pretty much the story with Victor. I mean, this guy was a mover of massive amounts of weapons, and but I wanted to kind of Travis, you said you were kind of blown away by the trade. And it was an interesting comment that one of our listeners actually said in on the group survey. He said, let me get the actual comment up here. The comment he made was, in the end, Victor Bout was in our possession since March of '08. Whatever value U.S. intelligence got out of him is long gone. He has been in prison for the last 14 and a half years for selling weapons to our enemies and terrorist organizations. Does it suck? Sure, but with the world moved on without him, the FARC still managed to get weapons without him. As with all organizations, you take the head and another grows in its place. Griner is now free, and we should celebrate that. Hopefully, due to the visibility of the case, U.S. citizens are a little smarter about what they're bringing into other countries.
Yeah, right.
So, and we'll get into,
Well, he's got a new career now, so he's
right.
starting over as something different.
Yeah. What did you find out that you said that he was starting in Russia?
So on Monday, he became a member of the far-right ultra-nationalist party that backs the war in Ukraine. He's going to run for he's going to have a spot in parliament, apparently.
That's how you treat all of your Russian heroes, right there.
Yeah. So I'm sure Putin's a big fan of him, obviously.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And what did you say? Tell us about the White House response to all this.
Yeah, so I forget what date. I wish I could have found this clip earlier and sent it to you so we could have played it. But what's his name? National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan was asked, I don't know what day this was, forgive me. Oh, December 12th. I'm curious, the reporter asked, does the administration consider Victor Bout to be a terrorist? Their response is kind of long, but it'll make you
Go
smile, I
ahead.
think. Well, he's not listed as a specially designated national. Well, we consider him to have was a convicted criminal, convicted of arms trafficking and other crimes to serve a sentence. He served 12 years in detention. He was set to be released in 2029. And of course, before we make any determination about whether to send somebody back as part of a deal to get an American home, we make a determination about the national security implications of that. We did that assessment in this case. We believe we can manage those challenges, but we will remain constantly vigilant against any threat that Victor Bout may pose to Americans, to the United States going forward. Holy shit. That response just blows me away. Like,
So,
well,
but
one, it's like any political answer. They
they're
don't
not
answer
answering
yes or
anything.
no.
No, no.
You get a whole damn chapter of a book.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that person's comment though. Like, well, they made their assessment on this and determined that, hey, this guy's not a threat anymore. I tend to disagree. I'm not the one that did that assessment. I don't know what goes into that assessment. But that is a fair point from whoever commented that. I can see that, but
Do
I don't
you
know.
what my and I want to go along with what our listeners said in our comment in our survey. What more could we have gotten out of him? I mean, obviously we probably got a ton of Russian intel out of him. We knew, and I'm sure that he probably, you know, I would almost bet that he probably gave us, well, if you send this to the Ukrainians, this is what they're going to have. This is what they're not going to have. This is, and this is. He was probably in the know of what the Russians were actually sitting on too. So, and in any case, so now you've got a member of a former arms dealer, now probably lauded as a Russian hero, coming home, running for the Russian parliament, going to be in Russian parliament. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah.
And I'm probably sure that the United States probably froze all of his assets that he had from before, but it won't take him any time at all to probably get reconnected.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
so the first question we want to go at was, okay, so the trade for Brittany Griner now, was this a trade that we should make? I mean, obviously you cannot put a price on a human life, an American life. An American is an American. And Brittany Griner, you know what? love her or hate her, she had the right to be upset. She had the right not to stand during the national anthem. She was an African American woman who was upset about the death of George Floyd. She had the right to be PO'd and to say what she said and do what she did. Okay, so was this a good trade? Was this a trade that we should have made?
Here's how I view it, and it's you got to ask this question. It's not about. I look at it from a national security, a tactical slash, yeah, I would say national security and intelligence based question of, okay, who won from this deal? Did America win any kind of intelligence, any kind of edge, any kind of tactical advantage, whatever you want to call it, by giving this guy up for Brittany Griner? I would say no. What did Russia just gain out of this deal? If we're talking about and asking a question in those terms regarding like national security, and Russia's case, they just got a hero they brought back home.
Yeah,
There goes morale, right?
right.
Um,
I mean,
I don't know. I just feel like if you look at it from that perspective, I really feel like we took a big loss with this one.
you know, I
And
I don't. I mean,
I could see the arguments against it though too, but it's
what
I look at it from that perspective. I feel like you have to look at it from that perspective just because of who this guy is and what he's done.
he how much? But the thing is, I mean, we and I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. So we prosecuted him. We gave him a 22-year sentence. And if he was an American citizen, more than likely, he probably would have been up for parole anyway.
Yeah.
Not justifying getting rid of him. I mean, he had. So what did
Well,
he
he
have?
was set to
He
be
had
released in 2029.
yeah. So he had 6 years left on his term. So he
How
had
old
six.
is this guy? Do you know by chance?
He was 40. So he was 41 when he was arrested. No, so he's 51. I believe is what I said. 51 or 52.
Oh man, he's still got some time left to
Yeah,
do some
yeah.
stuff
So
then.
I mean, he wasn't a super old guy, and so but again, like where I was going with this devil's advocate. So what else? We can't obviously we've probably milked this guy for all he's worth. We've gotten what we've wanted. We've gotten out of him.
That's fair.
But Brittany Griner, though, I don't like this whole making her. I mean, powerful NBA, WNBA player, powerful, big personality. Probably, as far as a celebrity, I would say probably a C list, not an A list or a B list, but probably a C lister, strong C list celebrity. you know, I mean, you're going to
Oh my
recognize a
God.
7 foot woman walking down the street with tatted top to bottom, and if you've heard her voice, good Lord, I mean, sound like, and so, but she is an American citizen,
Yeah.
straightforward American citizen. If I can trade one for the other, I'm going to make it.
But
But
she also broke the law in a foreign country.
yeah, and so this is so let's enter this discussion then too. You broke the law. I want to go back to a case if I could. And some of you older listeners may remember this. Some of you may not remember this. But if I can get the what year was that? So this was in Singapore, and this is probably before this it was. So
What
this
year
was
was this?
1994. Okay,
All
so
right.
this guy was a Michael Fay was this young man's name. Michael Fay at the time, teenager, and he's now, of course, he's back here in the United States. He's a casino manager. Had his 15 minutes, but he was a high school kid who was on vacation in Singapore, and they caught him spray painting the side of a building in Singapore. Okay, so in Singapore, they caning, hitting him, you know, bareback, blam, blam,
Oh
blam.
shit.
Okay, So this guy, 1994, and the United States were up in arms. I still remember this. So this was still the was this Bush? No, this was Clinton presidency, and this kid broke the law, caught red-handed, caught in the act, and he is this kid's arrested, goes on trial, finds him guilty, and he actually, I believe he pled guilty. I'd have to look and see, but I believe to to have his sentence reduced from 6 canings down to 4 for leniency.
Jeez.
And so got caned, took his licks, came home. You Here's the thing. You break, go back to what you said earlier, Travis. You break the law. You break the law. You and to go to the far left side of this, you got people who it was just THC in a vape.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter.
It's drugs.
It's
It's
and
drugs.
in Russia, yeah, for Russia, that is a illegal drug. It's not like you're in Illinois or California or whatever. It's
Our good
you're
friend,
there under their jurisdiction.
Alex Ellison, good evening counselor, said, I couldn't agree more. She wasn't kidnapped in the middle of the night by a terrorist cell. She broke Russian law and suffered the consequences. I think we would want the same thing to happen to a Russian citizen who broke the law here. And so, and you bring up, that's another one I can bring up too. Your response to that, Travis, if you want to talk for a second, I want to look something else up here.
Um, I had a point. Now I freaking lost it. It was playing devil's advocate on something. Oh, well, we brought up the THC thing, and yeah, it's people don't realize that in a lot of countries, I mean, marijuana is like highly illegal. I don't know how bad it is in Russia, but there's some countries, I mean, it's like a blacklisted thing. You can't you can't have it at all. So I think it's a lot harder for people to realize or understand how big of a deal it is because some people grew up in a place where it's been legal for how many years, and it's such a big part of American culture too. So I
Well,
think some people kind of downplay it because of that.
and so this is the news article I was thinking about. I remember this back in 2002. So this was a Russian diplomat from Russia to Canada. Now, granted, it's Canada, okay, but while this guy was in service as a diplomat in Canada, he was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the drunk driving death of a woman in Ottawa, Canada. Okay, and this guy was 47 at the time, and you know the he made a he made a plea. The Russians, they washed their hands of him. He said, "Hey, now this is back in the kindler, gentler days of of Vladimir Putin, but they washed their hands of him, and they said he broke the law, killed an American. I mean, the guy could have claimed diplomatic immunity, but he broke the law. So, in breaking the law, you do the crime, you do the time. Um, to me,
I had one question,
yeah,
and this was kind of my point I was trying to bring earlier. When we talked about that one case in 1994 where
the kid
the
and
guy
see,
took his lickings and that was it. He was free to go,
yeah,
right?
right.
We're looking at it. I'm playing devil's advocate here. We're looking at a different country here with different
Go
punishments.
different
I
rules,
don't know.
different.
I don't know what specifically Russia was planning to do. Like, I don't know what her sentence was or anything like that, but I don't think you can really guess and know as far as compare those two cases as far as like took the punishment and accepted it. Because I mean, he got it pretty easy, man. I'd take a
Oh
hit
yeah.
4 times to go out, get off free. Like, I doubt Brittany Griner had that option. Otherwise, I'm sure she would have taken it.
Well, so Brittany Griner. So one of the things that I got down was she had 0.45 grams of hash oil. Well, actually, she had one cartridge that she'd used part of. She had one full cartridge, .45. She had another one of 2.252, totaling 7.0. I'm sorry, 0.702 grams. So we're talking. I don't vape, so I know nothing about the vape culture or anything like that. But you're talking about less than a gram.
Right. It was concentrated in a cartridge. It's
So
yeah.
and of course you get a lot of bang for your buck, I'm sure. But I don't know if Alex could, if he's still listening, if he could tell us what that. I mean, I don't know what that gets at here in Missouri or in
Oh, I
Illinois
don't know
even.
what
I
it is
don't.
here.
I mean, I'm
I'm pretty
sure.
sure Illinois, if you just get like a fine, like you get like a ticket or
It's not.
something from what I've
I
heard.
wouldn't assume that it was a. I wouldn't assume that it would be a felony. I would assume that it'd probably be,
I think
probably
it depends on where or
right. I'm sure it's
the
a misdemeanor
circumstance
of,
of
of
it.
some sort.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you commit a crime in a form, we go into somebody else's house, we play by their rules. If I come, Travis, you come and you stay at my house. Well, hey, and Travis doesn't smoke, folks, but I'm just using it as Travis comes to my house and says, hey, I want to go outside. I need to smoke a cigarette. Can I? Okay, go outside and smoke a cigarette. You're not going to smoke in my house. I don't want people smoking in my house. That's a
Yeah.
rule I have. Okay. We actually, there was one time we had one of my youth who actually ended up moving in with us for a year, and she lived with us for a year. We took her in, and I said, here are my rules. And she was still a teenager, and I said, we had a room and we had a guest room. You're home. You're going to be home by midnight. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. And after a while, didn't play by my rules, and I said, okay, you have to leave. Okay. When you have established rules and you're going into, and here's the thing, Brittany Griner knowingly knows the risk. She played basketball, and she was going to play in an off-season league in Russia, which a lot of WNBA players and NBA players do, and
Hmm.
still do, even to this day, even with all the stuff going on with Russia and Ukraine, are still going over there playing basketball. Take this about, you're taking a calculated risk. You can't say, well, I forgot I had it in the bag. Okay. You had THC in the bag. You're going to go to Russia. You're going to do the crime. 9 years may be a bit excessive. But at the same time, I can't help but think that whoever this Russian judge was that handed this down, probably had somebody whispering in his ear, give her the max, because we're going to
Yeah.
get we're going to get old Victor back, and we're going to have I mean, a lot of this to me seems very premeditated. I thought that the whole thing, as it came down, I mean, they were tossing. I remember when this was happening, they were tossing this Merchant of Death guy. They were tossing his name out even way back when. And so this was, to me, I thought it seemed like it was premeditated. It was very, So
They could have, this is just a theory, but they could have very well had this plan because you got to think about it. She's been traveling over there. That wasn't her first time over there playing. She's probably smuggled that stuff
oh
before.
yeah, yeah.
She tried it, so she's probably obviously done it before and got away with it.
Alex did say prior to Amendment 3, THC oil in any amount was a felony. Less than 10 grams of marijuana was a fine only offense. Thank you, Alex. So
There you go.
yeah, so the
So,
the last thing that we want to bring into this discussion tonight is here's the wild card, Paul Whelan. So Paul Whelan. So here's been a lot of the criticism. Why don't we bring home this guy, Paul Whelan? For those of you who don't know, who is Paul Whelan? Paul Whelan was what we know about Paul Whelan, he is, let me get his age here, 52. I believe he's 52. Okay.
is he?
Yeah. Well, you see his picture. He looks like he's an older feller. Okay. And this guy he actually isn't an American born citizen, but again, yeah, 52, was given a 16-year sentence in 2020 after being arrested in Moscow on suspicion of spying in 2018. So, and at that press conference last Thursday, President Biden said the U.S. government will never give up on securing Mr. Whelan's release. Okay, so who is Paul Whelan? So what we know about Paul Whelan is he's actually a citizen of 4 countries. Okay, and again, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here as I do this, but he's a citizen of 4 countries: U.S., Canada, U.K., and the Irish Republic. He was born in Canada to British parents and moved to the United States as a child. He joined the U.S. Marine Reserves in 1994. This is after he had begun work as a police officer in Michigan. He was an IT project manager for a company called Kelly Services in the early 2000s. Deployed with the Marines for a couple of years on the first 2 tours of Iraq in 2004 and then in 2006. While he was serving in the Marines, he made his first trip to Russia. He had achieved the rank of staff sergeant, but he was discharged from the Marines for bad conduct. What it was, according to the Pentagon released records, said that his charges were related to larceny. He was accused of using someone else's social security number, writing bad checks.
Jeez.
And he continued to work for Kelly Services. He was the senior IT manager of global security investigations in 2010. According to court documents, he was in charge of the company's campus security group. His duties included managing, conducting investigations, as well as handling some purchasing. He left the company in 2016 and became a global security for U.S.-based automotive components supplier Borg Warner. Okay, so he's responsible for overseeing security at these facilities in Michigan and around the world. Okay, now as a side note, this organization does not have any facilities in Russia. All right, and so this guy has been to Russia. He's
Do you want the reason why he was arrested?
Yeah.
So he was arrested in Russia in 2018 and ultimately sentenced to 16 years in prison for espionage. So Whelan was apprehended with a thumb drive that supposedly contained Russian state secrets, though he had been told it only contained pictures of churches. I mean, regardless of what he was discharged for from Marine Corps, the guy's got citizenship in 4 countries, and he's in Russia apparently taking pictures of stuff. I mean, he sounds like he worked for some U.S. intelligence. Like, he really does sound like he was.
So,
what kind of citizens just over there taking pictures of stuff like that?
Right, and I don't want to be that guy, but with everything that's being said, so you get these pictures and these memes and all this stuff on Facebook and on Instagram. We'll release
the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys got a hold of that one.
Oh yeah, they ran. You run with it like, we can't release a former brother, who's serving in arms and blah blah blah, but we can release a America hating woman and blah blah blah. This is another one of those cases that you're okay.
But if you also compare the crimes of what they're being accused of, I mean,
yeah. Oh my God.
Britney Griner had a little bit of weed. Okay, this guy supposedly had state secrets, and he was taking pictures of.
And we don't
whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
and
we
don't know. And we don't know what was on. We don't know what was on that drive. We don't know what was on that drive. No. I'm sorry, but you don't have to be the head mechanic of Jiffy Lube to put these puzzle pieces together that this guy there's something going on.
Yeah.
So
obviously.
So we're using this narrative. And again, it goes back to the survey question that I asked. People look at this and say, oh, well, she was a celebrity. That's what, and I think, otherwise we wouldn't have heard of, Paul. We're never going to stop fighting for Paul Whelan. Well, like you said, if he works for the State Department or, that Russia probably has a file on this guy. Russia probably has a file on this guy. And so if we start saying, okay, well, what about Paul Whelan? And I could just imagine, now this is all speculation, but wouldn't you think that the Russians are saying, you really want us to go there? Do you really want to air out this laundry about really who this guy is and I mean, I think there's a
Yeah,
lot of
right.
things that are going underneath when you look at Paul Whelan's background, you know, and this is just from today and yesterday doing some research on Paul Whelan. I didn't know about the thumb drive thing because I didn't I was but I was told that it was pictures of churches. Really?
Yeah, what kind of,
Okay. Pictures of
but
churches, files, PDFs,
but
docs,
here's
what.
a good question for people who are like all of a sudden fighting to get this guy back. And we have to ask this question too. If someone from Russia was here and was apparently supposed to be a spy for Russia, wouldn't we want them arrested? If they were committing espionage and spying on us and reporting stuff to Russia about what's going on in the US, wouldn't we want that person arrested?
Well, here's the thing. When you read, there's a great 90s movie that I would recommend to anybody to watch. It's a movie back in 1991. It was a movie called Sneakers. And Robert Redford, River Phoenix, Sidney Poitier, Dan Aykroyd. I mean, it had a lot of big actors in it. Ben Kingsley, and I've watched that movie so many times. But I mean, it touches on the aspect of Russia right after contact between the Russians and us right after the end of the Cold War, or right after the end of the Cold War. And some of these pictures that are painted, we had some of it was like all the spy game stuff. We would have some of theirs. They would turn, you know, we would turn their spies against us, and we would use their spies against them, and get them to turn and to get, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. You know, when you when you read some of the history of the CIA itself, I mean, just the surface stuff is enough to really make your head spin as to what the CIA, what we really are doing in the name of intelligence, what we are doing, who we have in place, where we have people in place at, what we have them doing, who we have them monitoring, and the same thing here at home. You know, we have. I mean, I'm sure there are pocket spies for different governments everywhere. I mean, it's the world that we live in.
Yeah.
I think early on it was easy to catch these people because the old saying back during World War II and the Cold War was "loose lips sink ships." And if Sean was here, he'd have a comment for that, but we'll leave that alone. But you go back to the Rosenbergs, Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, who worked on the Manhattan Project and who were arrested and who were subsequently put to death because they were, accused of giving secrets from the Manhattan Project to the Russians. Later documents would find out that they actually were spies, but they had, again, the media hype and everything that happened back in the late 40s and early 50s surrounding the Rosenbergs, and free the Rosenbergs, they're wrongly accused. And no, this was stuff that was actually going on. So, and that was the very tip of the iceberg. And now I think since we've been around for a while, we've gotten better at it. You know, the level of spy, I mean, I I don't know. Maybe I've watched one too many Jason Bourne movies or or anything like that. But I mean, we're not going to mention, but we have friends. We know of people. I have former students he got out of the military. He was working in IT security for the army, and they wanted him to re up, and he was getting ready to get. He's like, nope, 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 don't want it. Don't show me anything. I don't, because he was going to do his 4 years and get out. And I think that is a scary that in and of itself. I think it'd be a very to get that kind of clearance and do that kind of thing. So this Paul Whelan guy, I would venture a guess that he probably was a next level spy, you know, and probably just got sloppy and got caught. Now, the last point I want to get to before we sign off for tonight, and you and I had this discussion. What message then does this send to the rest of the world? Does this make us come across as weak? Do we look weak giving in? I want you to share a little bit of our conversation before we went on tonight, Travis. What is your opinion? I mean, how does this giving up Victor Bout for Britney Griner? How does this play? How does this make us look to the rest of the world?
I mean, off the bat, and before I get into my whole spiel, I do still think this was a pretty uh, weak move by the U.S. I think Russia had a lot to gain, and we didn't really have much to gain. No offense to Brittany Griner, but again, going back to what I said earlier, um, we asked the question. So does this open the door for, say, countries like Russia or China or whoever? They see, okay, we can just, this isn't my words, this is what I'm reading on the internet. People are stating that, well, now countries are seeing that they can just take any high profile celebrity and use it as leverage to get people that the US is holding. And it's a fair point because, I mean, again, going back to, what did we really gain from this? Like, we just released a guy who did a lot of bad things. But on the other hand, I could see the argument of like, well, going back to what we said earlier, she broke the law. So as long as these celebrities, in theory, don't break the law, they shouldn't get arrested and held, right? Now, if this was this case where Brittany Griner was arrested and did nothing wrong, the Russians just decided to keep her, then we'd be having a totally different conversation.
Right.
But so I think that's the ultimate outlier right there is if they're actually breaking the law, yeah, 100%, they can be used against us now, for sure. I think that's going to be a game changer now. If a celebrity breaks a law in an adversary's country, you can bet this is going to happen again. I guarantee it.
Well, yeah, I
So
think
just
that.
don't break the law, I guess. And like I said, when you get to a situation where the celebrity becomes now in a hostage situation where they didn't do anything wrong,
Right.
totally different conversation.
Yeah, and we have to really be. I wanted to. I'm getting this. I'm doing this on the fly as we speak. I was telling Travis it was kind of funny. We've seen this meme, and I'm getting it pulled up here. So this is this is the meme that I've been seeing on Facebook quite a bit. It says Chapo waiting for an American athlete to f up in Mexico so he can be traded too. You know that's the truth right there. And that I mean, yeah, nobody's safe. Nobody's going to be safe in another country. I mean, what happens if this pops up again? Yeah, well, you did it for Brittany Griner and that armed, you know, and heck, Mexico is, go back to what Alex said earlier, man. Mexico is one of those places where they would take somebody and their cops are, if it's possible to be more crooked than a Russian cop, would be a Mexican cop to catch somebody and say, hey, you guys got El Chapo, you know, national treasure in Mexico, economic generator. What's it going to take to, all jokes aside, but I mean, that's what we're playing with now. We've never, as long as I can remember, and back in the day before terrorists flew planes into buildings, hostage situations, I'm not going to say were commonplaces, but for radical Muslim or terrorist groups of any kind to take an airplane and say, hey, we'll release these hostages if you release such and such from Guantanamo or from this or from that. Are we going to be setting ourselves up for that kind of series of things again? I mean, hey, you did it with your celebrity. Now what? Now America's going to be saying, okay, are we going to value Brittany Griner higher than just common Americans who are being held hostage or being, we're going to abduct, whoever when they're on vacation in Cancun. All right, we're going to abduct that person, and now, high level gut. Well, we arrested him on charges of whatever. Release this person for us, you're on a slippery slope. Let's just put it that way. You've put yourself on a slippery slope that you've opened yourself up to. It is. I agree with you, Travis. I mean, it's an ugly can of worms that we've opened up and that we could possibly get into.
And this is kind of a different situation, but this happened back in October, and we didn't talk about this. Remember when we made an exchange with Venezuela?
Yes.
There was we had 7 American prisoners.
Yep.
Like I think 5 of them were like
Yep.
working oil or whatever.
Yep. Oil rig.
And
it was
we
an
gave,
oil rig.
and it was, yeah, that's right. And then we had 2 of Maduro's nephews, I believe.
Yes, we
gave
did.
them back, and not great people.
Now that you mentioned that, I forgot all about that. I had for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
it rang in my head when we were talking about this. I Googled it really quick.
Yep.
So this was back in October. So I mean, I'm all for getting citizens back, and I don't think these people in Venezuela obviously didn't do anything wrong other than wrong place, wrong time.
Wrong place, wrong time.
And
So
that's again a different situation, but I think we need to be very careful with these prisoner exchanges.
well, and it it is what it is. And we've had we've had people who, like I said, the great response to our survey this week to this. People very well, and again, social media was just chirping about this, and it's kind of like whenever this stuff happens, and I just kind of like, but I'm like that meme of somebody's just sitting back eating a bag of popcorn, watching it all play out on, I don't dare, I don't dare, dare get into that discussion. But now knowing what I know about Paul Whelan, and again, here's the point of voice of reason: people who do their homework, okay, know about what you're saying before you start talking out of your butt on social media about Paul Whelan. So, and what you know about Britney Griner. It is what it is. But no, it's a great discussion this week. We next week we will. I don't know if we're going to do some kind of Christmas theme next week or not, or what we're going to get into, or sit around the campfire and tell Christmas stories or something. I'm not aware of what we're going to do next week. We usually.
I don't know. Let's figure that one out.
If you don't know us by now, we pretty much like flying. We used to. I still want to, Travis, one of these days when we do our look back. I want to look. We ought to play clips from like those first 2 or 3 shows.
Oh God, no! Please,
from
no.
those first 2, when we used to have segments. We would have, Travis, what's new in this, and Andy, what does this mean in history, and Sean,
Yeah, structure. I think we came to the agreement. Like too much structure doesn't work for a podcast setting. It's like talk show stuff. Like podcast is a discussion. It's a conversation.
Discussion.
And if you have all these rules and all this structure, it doesn't sound natural.
No, we
did away with that pretty quick.
We did. It's like, man, we have more fun doing it this way. Which we do have more fun doing.
That's what it's all about.
It is.
That's what it's all about.
So anyway, Travis, anything you want to say before we head out tonight?
Nope, I got nothing.
Hopefully,
new holiday flavors over on American Traditional. You can go check it out.
Oh man.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good.
I saw that. That was a nice little ad you guys had the other day, and I saw the little with the muffin, having the muffin and the.
Oh yeah, thank you. My wife
saw that. I was like,
helped me do like the marketing for it. So we got some more stuff we're gonna be sharing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining with us this week. We hope our buddy Sean will be back with us next week. But until that time, be a friend, share with a friend, help us out, get the word out, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.